Hello, welcome to Parenting with a Punch show. Your host, Amanda Houle, founder and creator of Parenting with a Punch, your parenting strategist, communications, and relationship specialist. Please visit my website, parentingwithapunch.com, to learn about all the ways that you can work with me. Today, I have a special guest, Tanya Millette, who is a special education advocate and parent consultant located in the greater Boston area. So please welcome our guest, Tanya. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yes. So I'm going to show on. So first and foremost, let viewers know how they can reach you if they are interested in an advocate for their family.
Sure. You can check out my Facebook page. It's if you look for facebook.com, Tanya Millette, Special Education Advocate, you should find me. And then my website as well.
Awesome. All right, there we go. Excellent. Okay, so, all right, where do we start? So your background, tell me, you were a preschool teacher, correct?
That's right. Well, that was just one of the many hats that I wore. I have taught preschool in a Head Start setting, in a public school setting, and I've done special education preschool assessments for kids like finishing EI and to determine their eligibility.
Awesome. Very cool. Your preschool work, were you in the greater Boston area or?
I was in a Head Start center, multiple Head Start centers in Boston. And then I was in Boston Public Schools and the Early Steps preschool program, which is in Watertown.
Oh, awesome.
So I've been around here.
Yes. Now, how did you like that, the preschools around here?
Well, they're wildly different depending on which town you're in and which program you're in. I love the age though. I think the age is so fun and there's so many things happening at that age.
Right. Now, did you see, so I hail from Brooklyn, New York, where I worked in the private preschools mainly, but when I moved back to the area about 4 years ago with a lot of back and forth, I noticed that the preschools they just run so much differently than what I experienced in New York. So for instance, we had children that received services through the state for, they had to fall 30% or below in two of the developmental domains, which was the social emotional development. And then oftentimes they would get PT or PT. Oh, Jen is here. Hi, Jen. Thanks for joining us. So they would get those services through the state. And most of the time, the kids would be showing signs of like behavioral difficulties. So they would have us come in to the preschool and pretty much I ended up working with the classroom as a whole because the kids, you're there and they want you to be a part of their world. And you sort of just like step in, during circle time or, during transitions with the kiddos might have some difficulty. But anyways, here, when I started to reach out to some of the preschool directors and such, they weren't like super open to, I guess, having somebody in the preschool. And I often heard from so many parents that they felt lost and the children would end up getting kicked out. And then they sort of like almost had nowhere to go.
Right. So I think it really depends if it's a public school preschool here or a private preschool setting. Mm-hmm. Public schools usually have to keep everybody.
Yes, this is true. You're very right.
Which, is a surprise to some people. But I've definitely seen kids and know of kids who've been kicked out of the private schools, which is kind of hard. When I was doing the assessment piece in Watertown, that's actually what I was doing. I was going into the private preschools and doing the assessment to see if they qualified for special ed in the public school setting. And so many of the directors and teachers I met were saying, we need help. We don't have the support. We don't have the training to work with children with these needs.
Right. Yeah, so the kids that would end up having to get kicked out, were they already diagnosed, or, well, I'm assuming no, because that's tricky too at that age.
Right. So some of them were in the process. Some of them, the preschool had put in an evaluation with the public school setting, kind of all over the place.
Right. Okay. Now, were they most often children on the spectrum, or did it vary?
I saw pretty much everything. a lot of children on the spectrum for sure. A lot of like just language-based difficulties,
Yes.
which obviously leads to behavior if you can't really express yourself well or you can't understand. For the most part, those are the big things.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is I think, especially out here, is what I'm seeing is we sort of have this culture where, with the autism diagnosis, we get services, right? We have the ABA.
Yeah.
And for children that just struggle with social emotional development, it seems that they kind of get, thrown in the mix, I guess, if you will, because there's just, well, one, there's no services really for them unless parents sort of reach out reach out privately, or they get early intervention, which stops at 3.
Right. And I think this social emotional piece is really important, but I don't think a lot of teachers do it, especially beyond the preschool years. It's just not happening in our schools.
Right. Good morning, Kathy. Thank you for joining. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I have come across a lot, or it seems to be a few more programs in the Boston area where they seem to be doing more professional development with the teachers. And what's been your experience with that, or especially right now when you're working with families as an advocate?
Well, I'll speak to it on two fronts. As a teacher, yes, we had professional development around social emotional learning and how to support kids with social emotional differences. And it was nice in theory, but I wasn't supported to implement it as a teacher. Right. So I had all this really nice training and this very nice curriculum and all of these nice strategies, but that didn't help me with what was in front of me. I needed more support in the classroom. As an advocate right now, social emotional, I'm seeing families struggle with it all the way through the middle school and high school years. People are saying, my 8th grader doesn't have friends, or my 5th grader who has a disability has to miss recess, and then she's not connecting socially with her peers. So I'm seeing it all the way through, and not just at the preschool kindergarten level.
Yeah. It really breaks my heart, because I hear that a lot too from parents, especially in the middle school and even like in 5th grade, where their kids their recess is getting taken away, which I'm sure you can probably agree that doesn't really help the situation.
No, it just exacerbates it.
I recently just came across transcendental meditation.
Yep.
I took a workshop where I graduated. It's not an official certification, but the woman who led it, she works with children in other countries, and she's seen such like a huge difference. And I actually just connected with somebody else who is local in the Boston area, who created a meditation program for both teachers and for schools, like in the public school. And I so wish that we would get more on that page and be able to implement that more in our schools, because the detention and the suspension, it's not helping our kids, especially the ones that struggle with that social piece.
Right. And they can't connect necessarily. Like I'm suspended today for 2 days to like whatever it was that they did. Most of the kids really can't connect it.
Right. I totally agree.
When I was teaching, I did a children's yoga training myself, and I brought yoga into the classroom, and it made such a huge difference. I only wish that I could have done more of it.
Oh, that is amazing. Yeah. See, I lived back in Brooklyn last year. As I mentioned, it's been a lot of back and forth. And I was working at a preschool as the lead special education teacher, and the director sort of brought me on because of my background in special education and the behavioral piece, because we had a lot of kiddos that were struggling with the behavioral. And the mornings we would switch off with one of the other teachers. So we would, one of us would do the morning circle and sort of like start off the day. Anyway, so we would switch every other. And every morning I would implement yoga and like some stretching.
Yay.
The kids absolutely loved it. Like learning some of the moves, like just, downward dog and some of like the cat and cow. And it was so cute to see them like feel like good about doing that. And they felt confident too when they like were able to do a pose or, sort of like teaching them. And I will say that it would definitely carry over into the day, depending on obviously, some of the kids that may have struggled a little bit more, but really implementing like that movement piece into it. I like even throughout the day, like, let's stop and do 10 jumping jacks.
Yeah, exactly. Both of my daughters went to a preschool where yoga was taught regularly as well. And they've both carried it with them. Like even the breath work. My oldest is 7, and so she can step back and say, okay, I need to take some breaths. And she knows to use like different breaths to fire up her energy when she needs more energy. And she knows to use like calming breaths or slower breaths when she needs to relax and go to sleep at night. And it's really nice to see.
That is amazing.
I wish it was more widespread.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. I feel like as a culture we're leading more in that direction, but we still have a way to go.
Yeah, in time.
Like anything, but still. So tell us more about the special education advocate. You had said that you sort of work with families all over, but to families, is it because the children aren't getting the services in the school? They're not following through, which I know because I've worked in the school.
It ends up being a whole range of things. Some people are just truly overwhelmed with all of the special education, like the whole process, right? It's document heavy. There's a lot of jargon and lingo and abbreviations. And so honestly, some people just need help looking through the IEP, looking through evaluations and figuring out, what is this? Does this make sense? Does this really reflect who my child is? I don't even understand this. So some people need help with that. Some people really have tried with the school and they've maybe gone through a couple of rounds of IEP meetings themselves, but in the end, their child's not making progress, or they're not really sure what else their child could be getting.
Right.
So it ends up being a couple of different things. And yeah, in some cases it's, well, the IEP looks really good and I'm happy with it, but the school's not actually delivering on their piece of it.
Right.
So it's all over the place.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I have several kids all over Massachusetts, and it's tough because obviously some, don't have the finances to be able to support it too, which obviously brings a whole other element.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and even just I go in and I do observations and look over the IEPs and make sure that things are being implemented. And it's so hard because a lot of the times, a lot of the schools they don't even have the resources, regardless of what the IEP says. It's so hard.
It is hard. And that's the number one thing is like, we don't have the resources. We don't have the resources. I hear that all the time in my work, and it's hard, you're trying to say.
Right. And legally they have to, but
right.
It's like, what?
But where does it come from? Who pays for it? How does it get implemented in reality? It's nice if it's on paper, but what does it look like? Right.
Yep. Oh man. Well, I tell you, I really commend you on doing that work, because it is so, so important for families to feel like they have a voice and to feel heard and to be able to be educated about all the lingo, because that can be tough too.
Right. The lingo, and also like what your rights are as a parent,
right?
What you can actually ask for and what you have to say no to, like that's actually not okay. And the other thing I tell parents all the time is I'm here to help your kid have this, like a really good education for him, but I'm also here to help you have a better relationship with the school district.
Right.
Because yeah, we're going to have this problem right now with the IEP. And that we're going to make that better, hopefully, in our work together. But you, the parent, are going to have this relationship with the school district for 10 more years, 12 more years, depending on the age of your kiddo. So
Yes.
I don't mind going into the school districts and really speaking strongly on behalf of the parents so that some of their relationship can be, preserved and kept intact, because they do have to have a good working relationship.
No, I agree. And it can be hard because I think a lot of the times, some parents would naturally, they get angry and they get upset, and having somebody that can help, mediate that and really be like the voice for them, because, we know the background, we know,
Right,
what we're
exactly.
talking about, their rights. And I often see too that, when the principals and some of the directors are in there, they're like blown away because they a lot of times they don't even actually know.
Yeah, that's unfortunately true as well. For me, it really shifted. I started volunteering as a special ed surrogate parent. So I work with kids in state care, and I do all the parenting part of their educational decisions for them. So I decide on school placements, and I go to the parent teacher conferences and all of that. But when I started sitting there as a parent with a background in special ed, I was completely overwhelmed, and I was like, something's wrong here, because my background is in special ed. I have teaching experience. I have years of experience doing this. And to sit here as a parent and hear what they're saying about this child that, isn't even mine, but I have to act like he is, I'm overwhelmed and I'm at my breaking point. Yes. And that really made a switch in my mind. I have to use my skills here to help parents, and I have to make this process better for parents.
Yes. No, I agree. I love it. It's true. And I can totally feel it from you as well. Like when you're working with the families, I think it really takes a special person to be able to, reach the children, reach the families, and really be able to have them feel comfortable and be passionate. I mean, I have families that, that I will get emotional with sometimes, because hearing some of the things that they tell you, and then sort of sitting down and just talking about some of the things that they've gone through over the past week with behaviors and such, it's hard. You have to be, empathetic. You have to be.
That's true. Some of those families are really struggling, especially with behavior.
Yeah.
And that carries home. I always share a story of when I was teaching in the classroom in Boston, one of the families begged me to come home and do the bedtime routine with the child, because it was such a struggle for them. And it was so, it went on for so long every single night. And it was almost traumatic for the family to put the child to bed. Mm-hmm. And, I wasn't really set up as a classic teacher to go into the family's home. So we shared some strategies, and I put together a plan for them to try to use at home, but I wasn't quite set up to go to their house. So,
well, I think I'm assuming it was a public school, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that too. Well, I mean, there's the rules, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, now you're not in the schools anymore.
Exactly. No, well, not in that capacity.
Right.
I'm in there for a meeting and to say, hi, we got to do it this way.
Right. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for everything that you do. You are seriously awesome. So I want to jump into, we kind of already talked about it, but I just want to ask you a few questions. The first one being, so we talked about punishment and sort of getting away from the negative reinforcement. So you're completely pro, positive reinforcement and trying to get rid of behavior with replacing or sort of focusing on the positive?
Yes, absolutely. Both personally and professionally. And whoops, I lost my headphones. Sorry about that. Yes, I find that the number one thing is consistency. So with changing a behavior or reinforcing a behavior, you really have to decide what you're targeting. You can't target 50 behaviors at one time. Just pick one, go with it, And whatever it is, whether you're replacing a behavior or you're teaching another strategy to the child, it's just, you have to stick with it. It's not going to be like a three-minute fix.
Right. Or an overnight fix.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And most parents, if they've been dealing with this for years on end, let's say the child is 8 or 10, then it's going to take longer because, it's been years of undoing. You have to undo all of the years of
right.
practice that they've been.
Years for that child to build that behavior to this level. It's not going to go away.
Exactly. And I understand and I feel where parents are coming from and they not being able to comprehend this. But I mean, part of the work that I'm trying to put out into the world and you as an advocate is to try and get parents to comprehend that if they put in the work early, that they're not going to struggle as much when they're older. Like that it's just so important to be conscious of that.
Yes, so much of our daughter's toddler and preschool years, that's how I explained it to my husband. I'm like, yes, I know it's a ton of work now. Yes. I'm sorry that it's so much work. I'm tired too, but it's going to be better later.
There you go. Now, how old are your girls now?
They're 5 and 7.
See, I love it. I mean, you put in the work and you're now seeing they're reaping the benefits, right?
Yes, for the most part. I mean, everyone has their moments. They're children and they're not machines. So
of course, right. And we don't want them to be machines.
Right. So, no one's perfect, but we just kind of go back to it and try again and try again.
Yeah, there you go. See that's the important piece that I think a lot of parents, again, not purposefully, but they just don't really seem to catch on to that.
Right. Exactly. What's easier in the short term versus what's good in the long term, It's
hard to see, I guess, when you're in the moment.
That's true.
Yeah. So owning your energy in parenting, how would you feel? I mean, you're a yogi, so I'm sure you can have a few things to say about that.
It's true. It's so funny because my daughters now are at the point where they're like, Mom, you need to go to yoga.
Oh.
I feel like, Mom, you're grouchy or you seem really tired. You should go to yoga.
I love it.
And they're right. I mean, really, when they're saying that, like, I haven't been in a while or I haven't been practicing like self-care as well as I should have. And they can pick up on it. I'm not good if I'm not taking care of myself. I think the saying is you can't pour from an empty cup. So,
yep.
And I'm definitely aware, like if I'm tired or if I am more snappy, I get it back. I get it all back. And I either get it back in that moment or I get it back later where I hear them talking to each other or I hear them talking to my husband and I hear myself at my like worst moments and I'm like, oh no.
Oh, thank you for being so real with like.
I'm sorry, I'm having headphone problems today.
Because again, the same thing. I think it's just hard for parents that, they beat themselves up, which I get, and right. Like you said, you're tired and it's hard to, in that moment, sort of, especially when you're feeling frustrated to not want to react or start yelling, but
it is hard. It is hard when you're in the moment and there's so much happening and whatever else has happened, like before that interaction with your kids, like maybe 10,000 other interactions with your kids or your boss yelled at you or you got in a car accident, whatever happened to you. But it is super hard to take that breath.
Right.
Count to 10, whatever your strategy is for not yelling at your kids in that moment.
Right. Yep. No, absolutely. But you notice the difference. You can feel it and you see it in the kids when you're able to recognize it.
I sure do. They make it very obvious.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And lastly, so we sort of touched upon it in the beginning too, about like the social emotional development and the communication. And obviously being a special education advocate and working with the families with the education piece, what are your thoughts in terms of the social emotional development being sort of like the core piece to like even getting to the academic part. Like if a child is not.
Yeah, I agree. The social emotional piece is huge, especially the younger the child. I mean, I think kids are going to need social emotional support all throughout childhood, really.
Yes.
But I think really, really emphasizing it in the preschool years, in the kindergarten year, the early elementary years, really giving kids skills and not just like, we have to move beyond, I feel happy and I feel sad. Like that's nice and that's a good start for for a 3-year-old.
Right.
But I feel like we need to say, okay, well, when I feel happy, I feel like this. How does it feel in my body? When I feel sad, how does that feel? But what can I do about it? Because some kids get stuck.
Yes.
I feel sad or I feel angry, and then that's it. That's their whole day, and they can't go beyond it.
Right.
And so it's really like and for kids to learn to like, what makes me happy? What makes me sad? It's not just labeling the emotions. That's a good start, but we have so much more to do than that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I mean, when children are, I mean, I see this a lot too with some of the older kids, in like 5th grade and older, is really just like finding a way to talk with the kids or like ask the right questions, I think can be hard.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like, you have to get to their level, Yeah. One of the students I know, he really does his best talking when he's playing basketball. So, hey, you know what? Like, cause he's kind of distracted with the object of throwing the ball into the hoop or whatever. And if you can get out there with a basketball with him, he's going to pour his heart out to you.
There you go.
He's going to tell you all the internal stuff that's not so obvious.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's really important as parents, and even if it's, even if it's like something super small, to find something that they know that their child is into and really like hone in on that and use that as an opportunity to reach your child so you are able to sort of like pull out more information so they're not struggling, on a day-to-day basis. But just being aware of that piece, I think is something that, or at least I know I'm, work on with my families and trying to recognize that.
Right. And then with the older kids, I'm seeing a lot of anxiety, like the middle school set, the high school set right now. My families are reaching out to me with a lot of anxiety, kids with anxiety.
Yes.
Whether that's due to sort of the changing social scene or it's due to, the increased academic expectations as kids get older, whatever it is, the kids are feeling really, really stressed out, really, really worried to the point where it's impacting all of the other areas of their life.
Right. No, I totally agree. Anxiety has, and I'm somebody that struggled, with anxiety at one point. And once I really started to, do yoga and the meditation and, and as an adult, obviously, being older and going through it over the years, I was able to recognize that. But I think it's a lot of times too, parents don't realize, they're emitting that anxiety onto their children when if you sort of like take a step back and like, I see a lot of like too many questions, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Especially in the older years. So children feel like they can come and talk with you. And relating to them, I think is a huge piece too. And sort of just like letting them know, you might have had a bad day at school and I'm sorry, and that sucks. Like maybe you had a fight with a friend or maybe you felt left out, and sort of just like recognizing that they went through that experience, right? And then that kind of like gives them the window to open up about it if they want to, as opposed to like forcing them to come out and talk about it.
I would agree. And I think the other piece is, as an adult or as a parent, sharing your own mess ups and saying, yes, I had a bad day too. And, this didn't work for me or whatever. And then talking about what you're going to do differently next time maybe, or how you resolved your problem. Because they need to see like, they also need models of effective feeling of coping.
Yes. The modeling is a huge, huge part. Yes. You have to be able to be open and honest about your own life experiences. And then you're letting them know, oh, well, this is how mom handled this situation, I might have gotten mad at dad for something, but then we talked about it and we were able to, you know, come together and figure out what we can do next time to communicate better. So 150% modeling for them is like vital.
Right. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, it was such a pleasure speaking with you today.
It was nice to talk to you too. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I so appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to getting to know you more and maybe even collaborating with something in the near future. I'm all about collaboration for 2018.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I like it.
And for our viewers that are catching us live and the replay, be sure to visit Tanya's, let me get that back in here, Tanya's info, and reach her if you are looking for a special education advocate. It doesn't want to pop up again, unfortunately, but you can find Tanya Millett on Facebook, correct? They can find you there.
I'm on Facebook. If you just use Tanya Millett, Special Education Advocate, you should be able, in the search bar on Facebook, you should be able to get to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on Parenting with a Punch show today. It was a pleasure. Have a great day.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. On Monday next week, I'm going to have a local doula, so please don't miss our episode next week at 10 a.m. And as always, follow us here. Download Parenting with a Punch podcast to catch the replay and listen while you're on your drive, and parentingwithapunch.com to learn all the ways you can work with me. Keep asking for more. Have a beautiful day, everybody. See you next week.